everybody and welcome back to my channel. But today's video is actually about 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk. So we're gonna jump right into the video and give this video a like and subscribe and turn on post notifications for new videos. So October 6th in 1995 in the Netherlands, 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk had actually stayed the night at her grandmother's house before she rode her bike to work at a nearby shopping center. Perhaps she was a little on edge on this particular morning because she complained to her aunt that just the day before that an unnamed man had harassed her on her way home from work. Nevertheless, even with this guy out there lurking and harassing her, she set off to her job. She was like, I'm going to work. That's what I'm going to do today. And she never arrived at work on October 6th. The police were almost immediately called, and Nicole's bike was found discarded by a river that very evening. There was still no trace of Nicole, and an intense search began to locate just where the young girl was. So over a month later, on November 22nd of 1995, a walker made a discovery that would most likely give them nightmares. In the woods between Mirlo and Lierop, they found Nicole's decomposing body. She had been raped, and an autopsy concluded that she'd also suffered a fractured jaw, injuries to her head and her fingers, and a stab wound from a small knife that had likely been fatal. The investigation quickly went nowhere. There were no leads, and they couldn't even they even arrested her stepfather and stepbrother, December of 1996, a year later. And however, this seems like it was kind of done out of like an act of desperation. As they were quickly cleared of any wrongdoing and were both swiftly released from police custody. But to add insult to injury, almost a decade after Nicole's body and case had been started, the number of detectives working Nicole's case was cut. And apart from a brief review in 2004, her case slowly went cold. By 2011, Andy, which was Nicole's stepbrother, had actually moved to England to start a new life. So he moved from the Netherlands to England, just kind of to get see if he could get a fresh start on anything. But he actually remained tormented by his beloved stepsister's killer getting away with murder. He also knew of the newly emerging DNA techniques that were coming out. So more DNA testing that we could do to solve her murder. And if they had this back in 1995, her killer would actually probably be behind bars at this point. Andy decided to actually jolt the investigation back to life, give it something to make people work on it. Nicole had been buried in the Netherlands not long after her murder, and he knew that in any absence of no evidence coming in, she would remain in the cemetery with any DNA material with her. So anything that was on her body that they didn't test or they didn't collect was on her body. So Annie decided to hand himself over to Stevenage police on March 8th of 2011 and getting himself rearrested. He even posted on his Facebook page saying, "I will be arrested today at the murder of my sister. I confessed, we'll get in contact soon." And investigators were dumbfounded, and Dutch police began extradition proceedings immediately. And they were actually unsure if Andy had done it or not. They were not 100% sure if he'd done it. Upon his return to the Netherlands, it quickly became clear that he was innocent, and he was once again released. But his plan had worked. The authorities agreed to reopen the case and see what DNA evidence remained with Nicole's body. He was actually asked why he falsely confessed, and he said, "I wanted her to get exhumed and get DNA off of her. I kind of set myself up, and it could have gone horribly wrong. To get her exhumed, I had to put steps in place, and I did it. She is my sister, and I miss her every day." Nicole's remains were actually examined for genetic material, and incredibly, scientists in New Zealand were able to use pioneering techniques to discover DNA belonging to 3 different men. The first was Nicole's boyfriend, who was never actually a suspect. The second was from an unknown profile, and the third was from a convicted rapist named as Josty G. Suspects are not identified by their full names in the Netherlands, so that's why his name is Josty G. The 46-year-old had, by this time, been convicted for rape 3 separate times, with one in 2001 resulting in compulsory psychiatric treatment. And that case was startlingly similar to Nicole's. However, the young woman had been grabbed from her bicycle, taken to a remote area, and sexually assaulted. The only difference was he didn't kill that girl. The G's psychological evaluation from the time was quoted by NL Times as saying that he was a vessel overflowing with hate, who could offend again if not adequately addressed. What was more, the suspect was known to have fought with his ex-girlfriend on the day that Nicole disappeared, storming from her home just hours before Nicole's abduction. So, Dutch police arrested and charged the G with rape and murder, but the fight for justice was not over for Nicole. On November 21st of 2016, 5 years after Andy had reopened this case, he was sensationally acquitted of murder and found guilty only of the rape. His sentence for this was only 5 years in prison. Although the jury had been unanimous in agreeing Digi raped Nicole and did not believe in his version of events that he told them, which he claimed he might have had consensual sex with her, but he couldn't remember. They said they had also been forced to consider the possibility that there was another person involved with the murder and such, could not convict Digi on this. Nicole's stepmother, who had been hoping alongside the prosecution for a 14-year sentence, sobbed in court and shouted, What if this would happen to your children? This is simply unbelievable." An appeal was mounted, and at last prosecutors were able to convince the court that Digi raped and murdered Nicole so that she couldn't tell police it was him that raped her. Crucially, no importance was placed upon the unidentified third sample of DNA, which it was argued could have come from anywhere. Joss Digi was sentenced in 2018, just 2 years after he was only sentenced to 5 years in prison, to 12 years of imprisonment for the rape and manslaughter of Nicole Van Hurk, more than 20 years after her death, after he killed her. Though the tragedy of Nicole's case actually doesn't stop with her. It was reported in 2021 that Andy had taken his own life in his home in England. His Facebook legacy page would seem to support this, with his final post on August 25th of 2021, alluding to his impending suicide, stating, "I'm ready to say goodbye." So, the case is very brutal. It took over 20 years to actually get anything on this case. And as much as that sucks, Nicole did get her justice, but her brother had to suffer at the hands of it. I would love to know what her boyfriend's DNA was doing on her, so if you guys know anything on that, I could not find anything for that. But if you guys know anything about that, please comment down below. I would really love to know what her boyfriend's DNA was doing on her. Joss DG and that unidentified third one, agreed with the courts a little bit there. That third one could have just come from anywhere, but yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, you guys can recommend a case as well if you go to my page and you go to the banner, hit the little Google form. As always, it will be on the screen so you can see how to do it. Yeah, and I will see you guys in the next video.